Let's get some more intel on which of those he might choose, and we welcome in our Director of Recruiting, Steve Wiltfong, for the Wiltfong Whiparound. So Ryan Wingo, closing in on that commitment date. I know at one point you were leaning Texas, then Mizzou. So how are you feeling as of right now?
And then Texas again, and then Mizzou again. And that's where I stand right now going into this announcement. Ryan Wingo also expected back at Mizzou this weekend as they host South Carolina. They were at the LSU game talking to Ryan and his family. They said that was just a fantastic atmosphere for the LSU game. But what they've seen from Missouri this year, a top 20 team, one of the most explosive offenses in the country, Luther Burden leading the nation in receiving yards, the receivers coach, and his track record of development, not only with the guys on the roster, Luther Burden, Theo Weiss, Mookie Cooper, but also, his track record with A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, and guys like that. I think it shows Ryan that he can achieve what he's aiming to do, which is ultimately play at the highest level at Mizzou. Now, Texas has had momentum at various points. Miami and Tennessee, those have been exciting relationships and exciting opportunities for Ryan Wingo. But I like where Mizzou stands to keep another in-state five-star home, as they already have the number 4 player in the country, Williams Nwaneri, committed. Perhaps those guys enroll early together, roommate together. I've heard some of that as well out there, but really like where Coach Drinkwitz and company are at with a week to go in this recruitment going into another visit at Mizzou.
Super excited to bring you that commitment live. It's crazy to think he's choosing between maybe some SEC schools, because Texas joining the league next year. Let's talk about another five-star decision coming this weekend for defensive lineman LJ McCray. What can you tell us about his impending choice coming up Saturday?
Well, I made about 8 or 9 phone calls on LJ McCray today. Have more on the 24/7 Sports website. But some of the things that people were saying about LJ McCray: family handling this thing like pros. They keep it close to the vest. They've done a masterful job of being silent through all of this. Trying to add up all the intel, all the buzz, all the chatter. Coming into the week, I feel like things have really picked up around Florida State. That's a program that seems to have some momentum as they put the finishing touches on what could be a really special recruiting class. They're already having a special season. He took his last visit of the process to Florida State 2 weekends ago, or at least his last visit before he makes a college decision. And Florida State's been on him as long as anybody. Coach Hagan's and his track record of defensive line development, Coach Norvell, trajectory of the program, all exciting things. And a lot of people think that Florida State's at the top or near the top here down the stretch. A program that's always been at the top or near the top is the Florida Gators. He's been camping with Florida going back to middle school. Really loves this recruiting class that Florida's putting together. It's number 3 nationally right now in the 24/7 Sports player rankings. Coach Napier, Coach Chaos, that coaching staff has really made an impression, and he feels very comfortable in Gainesville. Those are the 2 programs that I'm hearing the most buzz about going into Saturday's decision. Georgia was a school that I was hearing a lot about coming into the season. They were the one school that he didn't visit this fall, at least on their campus, and watch play. He did see them play against Auburn, but I think Georgia's kind of dialing back in this one. We'll see what happens this weekend. Miami's a program that's just kind of, they're in that, right? He's from South Florida, or he's got a lot of family in South Florida. The opportunity to be coached by Jason Taylor is exciting to him. Also likes the program trajectory, still in contact with Miami. While I'm hearing more about Florida State and Florida's position, I'm not sleeping on Miami or ruling them out. We've seen them rally and land guys like Zaquan Patterson late. Marquise Lightfoot was in Ohio State, gleaned for a lot of his process. He's committed to Miami. So we'll see what happens down the stretch here for LJ McCray. And then communication still remains with Auburn as well. Coach Jeremy Garrett and company have a great relationship. He loves what he's seen from that first-year staff. He was there for the great game against Georgia. He's the freshman on the field playing. Same thing with Miami. But summing all that up, Emily, Florida State, Florida, when you're adding up the 8-9 people you talked to today, people feel they're in the best position, but you still got Miami and Auburn in there as well.
can't rule anybody out. 4 uncommitted 5-stars at this point, but this time next week, that will be cut in half. I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to remind you to hit that like button if you have not already. Steve is showing you what it looks like. I think there's a heart button that you can hit, but we want the one that looks like the thumbs up. Go ahead and
This is what Taylor Swift does? Is that her thing?
Yes, Steve.
The heart button?
Yeah, but we don't hit the one that looks like a heart. Hit the one that looks like a thumbs up. That's the one that we like. But we'll appreciate the hearts too. I can't believe we already got a Taylor Swift reference on this show. I'm going to try to steer us back on track because finally this week we have a game of consequence in the Big Ten. Ohio State hosting Penn State, and I am certain that that is not all they're hosting. Steve, who are some of the big name visitors traveling to the shoe this weekend?
Well, let's start in the 2024 class. Ohio State has the number 2 class in America, and that's headlined by our number 1 player in America, Jeremiah Smith, top-ranked receiver, top-ranked player. Coming back to Columbus, he was there for Ohio State's home opener this year. It's well documented. Florida State, Miami trying to flip him. I think that's going to be a hard uphill battle for those programs, but obviously Ohio State getting them back is big. They're also bringing in top 247 defensive lineman Amaris Williams, who they are trying to flip from Florida. And I think that if you're Florida, you're a little nervous about this visit. Larry Johnson and company recently offered. They're getting up to campus for an official visit. This is a new opportunity for Amaris to consider that he didn't have the first time around when he made his college decision to play at Florida in June. Now, Florida, they're doing all the right things. Recently, we're at his school, trying to get him back for another home game after this. And he loves Coach Napier, loves Coach Bateman, Coach Peterson, and that coaching staff there. But Ohio State's an exciting opportunity. Larry Johnson's track record. It's going to be a great atmosphere, great environment. We'll see what kind of move Ohio State makes this weekend. But I think that the interest is real in Ohio State, and we'll see what kind of weekend he has. And then in 2025, so many blue chippers. We could do an entire show on just the visit list, so we'll just highlight a few. Ohio State, they got the number 10 class in the country right now, headlined by quarterback Tavian St. Clair. He'll be back. They could sign a special DB class next cycle. They have the nation's number 2 corner, Devin Sanchez, the nation's number 3 corner, Dorian Brew, the nation's number 4 corner, Trey McNutt, and the number 1 player in Indiana, cornerback Mark Zachary IV, all expected in Ohio State at the top or near the top for each one of those prospects. Mark Zachary was just at Michigan earlier this week on his fall break. Wolverines impressed. He likes Notre Dame and Cincinnati. But every time I see Mark Zachary play wearing Ohio State gloves, I think that Ohio State's in a really good spot for Trey McNutt. Devin Sanchez is a battle with Alabama, LSU, and A&M, but he's been to Ohio State a couple times. Loves Coach Walton, Coach Eliano and company. And then Dorian Brew is just going to be a slobber knocker on the trail. 2 more names. Top 247 offensive tackle Carter Lowe. That's trending the right way for Ohio State right now. He's out of Toledo Whitmer. And then Marquise Davis is a top 247 running back from Cleveland Heights. He was at Penn State earlier this year. He's high on both these programs. Hard to beat Ohio State for a running back in the state. Coach Tony Alford does a fabulous job, but he likes both these programs, so big opportunity for each of these teams in the Marquise Davis sweepstakes on Saturday.
Let's head a little further down south where 4-star athlete Kamron Mikell out of Georgia looks to be trending toward a future commitment to Georgia. Now, you and Kip Adams from Dogs 24/7, you both have crystal balls in for the in-state prospect to commit to the Dogs. They've been in there for a while now, but what is the latest with his recruitment?
Yeah, my crystal ball, I don't love it,
Ooh.
Emily. Now, Georgia, they're going to bring him back the first weekend of November. Cam Mikell told me that he'll be on campus back in Athens for that. I did like Georgia. I think that crystal ball is old, and they're certainly one of his top contenders. But I like Tennessee right now for Cam Mikell. Was back on campus earlier this season. They were one of the first programs to pitch offense to him. That's an authentic, genuine thing for the dynamic player who's a major riser in the recent 24/7 Sports player rankings update. Great relationship with the staff, loves Tennessee's offense, loves the way that Tennessee's recruited the quarterback position. Mike Matthews, similar skill set type player from the state of Georgia, already in the fold for Tennessee. I think there's a lot of things to like about Tennessee. Now it's like, does this upcoming visit to Georgia make me reignite and like that pick as much as I did? Because I like Tennessee right now. Colorado's in there. They have his cousin Amontre Bradford committed. He had a really good return visit to Colorado this fall after visiting back in the spring. A&M, Kentucky, South Carolina, a couple others he likes. But Tennessee, the most right now for Cam Mikell, and I'm thinking about changing that pick to the Vols.
Ooh, okay. So what you're telling me is it ain't over yet. We definitely need to continue to track this one. Cam Mikell is not
He's
locked
going
it
to
up.
come in on Thanksgiving, too.
Okay.
We need to add that. Turkey Day commitment for Cam Mikell.
Okay, so we will get a decision soon enough next month. Good to know. Okay, it looks to have been a pretty successful week for Notre Dame after taking down a then top 10 USC at home. You now have 3 crystal balls in favor of the Irish for some guys in the class of 2025. Who do you have trending toward Notre Dame right now?
Well, my colleague Tom Loy and I, we have Cree Thomas, a defensive back out of Phoenix, Arizona, Brophy College Prep. We crystal balled him to the Irish Sunday morning after his return visit to Notre Dame. We were hearing a lot of positive buzz for the Irish regarding Cree Thomas coming into the visit. He told me the environment was wild. It was really amazing to see how passionate the fans are about the Irish. He stormed the field after the big win. He said that was super fun and definitely a highlight. And the thing that continues to excite him about Notre Dame is just the energy of the whole program, passion for the game. He loves Coach Freeman, loves the staff. I think Notre Dame has set the bar in that recruitment, and that's why we've crystal balled the Irish for Cree Thomas. I also joined Tommy Loy in crystal balling Notre Dame for top 247 tight end James Flanagan out of a school that has the name Notre Dame De La Baye Academy up there in Green Bay. He visited Notre Dame in March, returned for spring practice in April, and then was at this game. And the returns are always super high from James Flanagan regarding the Irish. I think he's closing in on maybe making a decision. Love where Notre Dame stands for James Flanagan as they battle Michigan, among others. And then for my neck of the woods, the Indianapolis area, I crystal balled Notre Dame for defensive lineman Damian Shanklin out of Warren Central. Notre Dame's had success at Warren Central before. They landed Sheldon Day, who had a great career at Notre Dame before playing in the NFL. And Damian told me that when Notre Dame offered back in August, they moved to the top of his list. This was his first visit there. He said everything stood out. Had a great time with the recruits, the coaches, loved the game. Really has clicked with Coach Al Washington, Coach Nick Sebastian, and he believes that they see a lot in him, which makes him see even more in them. And then they sacked Caleb Williams 6 times, or 8 times. They picked him off 3 times. He said it was a wonderful night. Could ultimately end up being a wonderful class for Notre Dame, and I think they'll land these 3 guys in 2025. And then 2024 tight end Carter Nelson, top 247 player, arguably the top tight end in the country, number 2 in our standings. He's committed to Nebraska. Now, I think it's still a little bit of an uphill battle for Notre Dame in flipping him from the in-state Huskers, but they got him back to campus. He's very comfortable with Notre Dame's recruits, C.J. Carr. It's a top 10 class. He's gotten a chance to click with those guys over a couple visits. Coach Gerard Parker, Coach Marcus Freeman, he likes those guys. There's something about Notre Dame for him and that family that they love. With that being said, the family has a lot of love for Nebraska, loves what Matt Rule and company are doing there. And so I still need to see more before I say he's going to be in Notre Dame's class. But I do think Notre Dame has the brain or the wheels churning for Carter Nelson and his family after they were able to come in and see a storied rivalry, which was one of the boxes they wanted to check with their process, see one of the best storied rivalries in college football. His dad said everyone should go see Notre Dame USC. They were able to do that. Notre Dame continuing to try and chip away at Carter Nelson. But I think if you're asking me right now, I think he'll still stick. But we always reserve the right to change our minds.
And so does the young man, too. I mean, he's looking around. I know Nebraska fans are probably a little bit nervous, but Steve Wiltfong says right now, it's all right. Okay, since we didn't get to talk to you on Monday, we still have more visit recaps to discuss. I got to ask about LSU because we promoted the fact that they hosted the #1 quarterback in the 2025 class, Bryce Underwood. So tell us, how did the weekend go?
Yeah, you had Brandon Huffman on to talk Washington. You had Don Callahan on to talk North Carolina, those big recruiting weekends. We just talked Irish, but LSU, they had a big recruiting weekend, which was highlighted by the #1 quarterback in the country, 2025 passer Bryce Underwood out of Belleville, Michigan, who's now been to Death Valley 3 times, had a great visit early in the year, returned this summer and had another fantastic experience, both day visits, and this time they got a chance to soak in a night in Death Valley. And his dad, Jaquan, told me, man, what an experience. Not only LSU, but Baton Rouge is an amazing place to be. Me and my family love the atmosphere. Now, they really clicked with Joe Sloan, quarterback's coach, Brian Kelly, head coach, and Jaquan talked about them having an opportunity to observe the coaches in their element. And then also, I feel like a lot of recruits, when they talk about LSU, they always bring up the food, and they got to eat some of that Cajun food down there. So, look, I think LSU is still in great position. If they're not at the top, they're definitely near the top, tied at the top. Michigan, Colorado, Alabama, Oregon, some of the others. But there's no question they love LSU. And LSU's trying to put together a special 2025 class. They already have one of the nation's top receivers, five-star Decorian Moore, committed, trying to get Bryce Underwood. And then I think that they're the team to beat for Harlem Berry. Have had a long-time crystal ball for the 2025 running back from Penn State on LSU. He was back on campus, had a great visit there. And then in 2024, look, you let off the show. They lost Amari Evans, who flipped to Georgia, but they're trying for some flips themselves. And that starts with Terry Bussey, the number one ranked athlete in the country, committed to Texas A&M. He said the people and environment keep attracting him to LSU. He has a strong relationship with coaches, and that's bringing him back to campus. So LSU not going away on Bussey, who recently committed to the Aggies. Draylon Miller's a top 247 receiver who was committed to A&M when he visited LSU this past weekend. He is no longer committed to A&M. LSU is certainly near the top of his list. He had another fantastic experience there. He loved the crowd, loved the energy, and loved the performance. Jaden Daniels, 418 yards of total offense, 3 passing touchdowns. That spoke to Bryce Underwood, but also spoke to the receivers on on campus like Draylon Miller. And then LSU also trying to flip Gabriel Relaford out of Shreveport Evangel Christian, committed to the Aggies as well. And they were ultimately able to land edge rusher CJ Jackson out of Tucker High, one-time Georgia Tech commit, now rocking with LSU. So that was a rocking night at LSU. It's already starting to pay dividends, and I think this visit weekend will continue to pay dividends for Coach Kelly and company down the road.
You've got Death Valley at night. They won a national championship not too long ago. Big program. I think their locker rooms look like mini spaceships. But the food, Steve, the food is really what wins over some of these recruits. Let's talk about the newly minted 5-star offensive tackle Jordan Seaton. He is locked in another official visit, spending the weekend in Eugene, Oregon. So where do the Ducks stand in this recruitment?
Well, they're trying to move up the ladder, but they're definitely in the game. This is a visit that he's had on his radar for a while. He visited during the summer, said Dan Lanning is as real as it gets. Alabama's still the leader, in my opinion, based on conversations with Seaton. Florida and Tennessee, recent visits to them have made them very much contenders. Ohio State will be there for the Michigan State game. Colorado's in there. Miami's in there. Oregon trying to make a move this weekend. He loves Coach Dan Lanning.
Okay, before we let you go, it sounds like you're ready to put in a crystal ball projection for one of the top players in 2025. Who you got and what's the school?
Yeah, I like Alabama for a top 247 edge. Zion Grady from in-state making another visit to campus this weekend. He loves the track record of Alabama developing players of his position, that stand-up edge rush linebacker. And I think coming into this visit, they are the one to watch, and I think he's starting to get closer to making a decision. Now you have Georgia in there still. You have Florida State in there as well. And then he also talked about maybe taking a visit to LSU before deciding, but I think Alabama is the pulse for Zion going into his visit this weekend for the Cigar Bowl. And he's not the only blue chipper that's going to be on campus. You have top 247 running back Daniel Hill, who was at Tennessee a few weekends ago. South Carolina's in there too. But Alabama's got a lot of momentum with Daniel Hill. This is a return game for him. There's no question his parents would like to see him at Alabama. But Tennessee is a program they'd love to pair him with running back Peyton Lewis. If they can land Peyton Lewis and Daniel Hill, that gives them arguably the best running back class in the country. And so the Cigar Bowl, maybe an opportunity for Tennessee on the road to make an impression on Daniel Hill. But the family loves Alabama, loves the running back track record, loves Nick Saban, loves everything they're about. And then George McIntyre, he's not expected at the Cigar Bowl. He was at the Cigar Bowl last year, and there's a picture of him that I posted from that game of him and Peyton Manning in the locker room with a cigar. And George McIntyre was at Tennessee this past weekend. Couldn't have gone better. I think the Vols, Alabama, LSU are some of the schools I'm looking at closest for him. He's going to be at UCLA for the Colorado game. But this Alabama-Tennessee game could be big on the recruiting trail for a number of prospects as Tennessee tries to light it up for a second straight year and Alabama tries to regain their dominance over their longtime rival here.
That's what makes the third Saturday in October so fun. Steve, I lied to you because the people have some viewer questions for you, so I'm going to throw this one out at you. Marshall would like to know, do you have any latest intel on Booker Pickett? I think he's supposed to commit tonight, right?
Yeah, he is committing in 1 hour and 34 minutes as I talk to you right now, and I love where Miami stands for the legacy recruit. His father played at Miami. His mother went to school in Coral Gables. He was at the win over Texas A&M. They had a fantastic time, and Jason Taylor, Mario Cristobal company have done a great job recruiting this electric pass rusher who's had over 60 sacks coming into his senior season, a guy that can rush the passer, could play linebacker. If he commits to Miami, which we are projecting, Miami would move up 3 spots to number 10 in the 24/7 Sports recruiting rankings as they wait on LJ McCray this weekend to try and keep moving up. Defensive line, pass rusher, the big need, the big point of emphasis for Miami this cycle. They already got some really talented ones in the boat. They'd like to add Booker Pickett, and then they'd certainly like to add LJ McCray moving forward.
Certainly, Miami trying to top the 7th-ranked recruiting class they finished with last season, continuing on that trajectory. Steve, thanks for being here today. You're the best. You can check out more of his work online at 247sports.com. And as always, you can catch past Wiltfong Whiparounds you might have missed on the 247 Sports YouTube page.